Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday afternoon, the first Thursday of the month, which means it is PCA HCCN Professional Development Hour. Get excited, I know I am. Welcome back to the second in our six-part series for you guys, PCA and HCCN staff. So I'm Suzanne Speer. I'm the Director of Workforce Development here at ACU. And again, we're just thrilled that you're here with us and excited to have you on this journey of getting some information for you guys. You spend a lot of time helping your health centers and doing things for them. And so this is our way of giving back to you guys and really bolstering your roles at your PCA. So thank you again for joining us today. As you guys know, ACU stands for the Association of Clinicians for the Underserved, and here at ACU, we are all about all things recruitment and retention. So we are a membership organization that focuses solely on that topic and recruitment and retention of clinicians, and we do that in various ways. We have a strong focus on the National Health Service Corps. We were founded from the National Health Service Corps, an alumni organization, and that remains our chief advocacy focus. We are always developing new resources and training materials for you guys outside of our STAR Center, and always, always working on things. And we have a conference every year in late July, early August. I believe this year it's the 28th through the 31st of July. So always keep that in the back of your head as you're thinking about your summer and your travel plans. It's a great resource for you all as PCA and HCCN staffers. When I was a PCA staffer, it was one of my absolute favorite conferences. I really always felt like I got a lot out of it, and we always have a workforce track at our conference, and so you won't regret it. So stay tuned. We are going to be getting out the save the dates soon. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that training opportunity as well. So ACU, as I mentioned, we develop a lot of training materials for on recruitment and retention of clinicians. And we also have a specific national cooperative agreement from the Bureau of Primary Health Care. So we are one of two workforce NCAs. So one of those workforce NCAs is focused on pipeline development. And that NCA is Community Health Center, Inc. at White-Smith Institute. And as I mentioned, they are really focused on pipeline development, health professions training, and they also do a lot with team-based care. So if you have any interest or need in either of those topics, please visit their website and you can get all the information there of the great things that they do. And then, of course, there is the other NCA, Workforce NCA, which is our NCA, and it is the STAR Center, so Solutions, Training, and Assistance for Recruitment and Retention. So most of you guys know our web address, which is chcworkforce.org, but if you haven't visited lately, please take a minute, give our website some love, sign up for our newsletter, and take advantage of all the great free things that we have there. I know I feel a little silly telling you guys to sign up for our newsletter, but because most of you probably already have signed up for our newsletter. But if you haven't, please do that. We have a ton of activities that are coming up this winter and spring. And so we want you guys to stay abreast of everything that is going on with us and all our latest initiatives and activities. One thing I don't have a slide for, but wanted to mention too, because one of the things that I talked about earlier was the other workforce NCA. There are actually 19 other NCAs. They're all on various topics, and we are all a part of a national resource center. And we have developed a clearinghouse of information that houses all types of information on all the topics and resources that every NCA has developed there. So, so go to healthcenterinfo.org. That's starcenterinfo.org if you want to check that out. And again, you can find all the resources from all of the NCAs there. If you search by topic, you can find it. So that's something that you might not have heard of. I mean, probably have been on our website, but you most likely have not been on that website. So I just wanted to take a second and mention that, as it's something that you all could get a lot of information out of. So go ahead and check that out. So, and just as a reminder of the STAR Center team here. So as I mentioned, I'm Suzanne Speer. I'm the Director of Workforce Development. We also have Mariah Blake on the line today, and she is our program manager. She keeps everything happening. She keeps us all in line and makes sure that everything is happening as it should. And also Allison Abesecra, and she is our VP of Training and Programs at the STAR Center. And she wasn't able to be on the line with us today, but you know, we just like to mention all of the members of our team and give you our contact information. So if you have any needs that arise, you can know how to contact us. So we're having this professional development series. What is it all about? Well, a couple things. So there are so many things that most health centers, and most PCAs work on, and you know, you might wear lots of hats at your PCA. You might do workforce, you might do HR, you might do payroll, you might do all other kinds of training. You know, there are a lot of things that you guys are focusing on, and so we wanted to help you guys build your workforce expertise with this. We want to give you some specific topics and some specific areas where we could develop a curriculum where you could take these things and apply them as relates to your workforce efforts at your PCA. We're also going to be sharing some PCA and HCCN successes. So as you know from last time, we are going to have a guest speaker from a PCA or HCCN and for each of these sessions. So each month we're going to be featuring a PCA or HCCN that is doing some work in the area of the topic that we're talking about. So it's a really cool thing to hear from what your peers are doing. And, you know, it's easy for us to say it as an NCA at the high level, but, you know, at a PCA level, how's it really executed? How's it really going? And how is it working out? And you know, what are their successes? And maybe what are some of their trials too? So it's really exciting for us to be able to showcase some of the great things that your fellow PCAs are doing. We also want you to connect with others during this series. So, you know, as people are asking questions and putting things in the chat box, you know, take note of those things. And, you know, if somebody has something that, you know, you're interested in hearing about, contact them. You know, if you don't have their contact information, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get you in touch with the people who are doing work in the areas that you're interested in. So make sure that you take care, that you take advantage of the situation and really connect with your peers and take note of what others are doing during the series. Just a little bit of webinar housekeeping before we move forward. So we are recording this series, and it is available for download after this. And also questions, they're awesome. We encourage them, in fact. So as you're going along, jot down some questions. If you have a question, go ahead and you can use the questions and chat boxes to put your questions in either of those two places, and we'll be monitoring those boxes as we go along, and we will have a period for questions at the end. So again, you don't have to wait until the very end when we have time for questions. Go ahead and put those in those boxes when you think of them so you don't forget. And if you're having any technical difficulties during the broadcast, please email Mariah at mblake@clinicians.org, and she will get you on the right path. So without further ado, we're going to dive into the content for today and talk about our goals for this webinar. So today is all about developing a state training plan for your health centers. And so we are going to be reviewing the components in developing a state workforce plan. So what are the type of things you need to have as you develop your workforce training plan? We're also going to review the process involved in developing that training plan. So, you know, we're going to look at the components and then also actually how you get from A to Z in your training plan. And then we're going to hear from some experts from the California Primary Care Association. So we're really excited to have them on board, and we truly appreciate their partnership and their willingness to share today. Okay, who's awake? So we're going to ask you guys to answer a poll question, and Mariah is going to launch the poll here. And so for our first question, we want to know exactly where you guys are with your training plans in your state. So does your organization, the question is, does your organization currently have a workforce training plan? A, I'm not sure. B, we're not there yet. Yes, C, we do have some basics. Or D, yes, and we're practically experts. So take a minute to weigh in there and let us know where you guys are. This will help us as we gauge, you know, so help me with my presentation and just gauge where you guys are. And we'll leave it there open just for a hot second more. Okay, groovy. Okay, so it looks like pretty evenly spread between B, we're not there yet, or C, yes, we do some basics. So 42% was B, we're not there yet, and 50% was yes, we do have some basics. We had 4%, I'm not sure, and D, 4% that were practically experts. So great. So hopefully what you all will be able to take from today, you'll be able to go back, and whether or not you're just getting started or you have some basics and you need to beef things up, hopefully today you'll come out of this and you'll be able to move forward with either starting your plan or really beefing up the plan that you already have in place. Okay. All right, so we are going to talk obviously about developing a training plan. And as we talk about developing a training plan, we're going to talk about planning for success. I really like this slide, or this quote rather, because, you know, it really rings true to a lot of things that, you know, we can apply to our lives. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you have workforce goals, but you don't have a plan to get there, then it's really just a wish. So we're going to take all of these big goals that you might have, things that you might have done some strategic planning at the PCA level, and you've been thinking about all the things that you want to do in regards to workforce. And we are going to put those, and we're going to show you how to make a plan with those goals and really get them executed instead of just having it be wishful thinking. Okay, so for those of you who said we're not there yet, you are probably scratching your head and saying, oh my gosh, Suzanne, this is so overwhelming. I just don't even know where to start. So here are some questions that'll get you started. And for those of you who have some basics, these might be good for you guys too, just to see, you know, okay, well, let's figure this out. And we've got some basics, but, you know, let's see if there's something else that we can add to develop our training plan. Okay, so first thing you want to ask is, what data does my PCA or HCCN collect? Okay, this is great. So this could be anything from, you know, vacancy information for those of you who do direct recruitment, if you do direct recruitment, any salary surveys, those type of things. So any sort of data that you have. We can also talk about other types of data that you might have that Allison covered last week. You also can ask yourself, How does my PCA or HCCN receive input from our health centers on training needs? What are our PCA or HCCN priorities? This would be this, or you could also swap out the word goal for your priorities. And then also take a minute, think and assess what trainings have we conducted in the past on various workforce issues. So as we go along, keep in mind all of these questions that you want to start asking yourself as you begin the process of developing a workforce training plan or a workforce training curriculum, if you will. Okay, so you want to gather your information. So you've asked yourself your questions, you're kind of, you're getting your, you've put the train on the tracks, and now the train is moving down the rails. So we're going now. So workforce data. Think about all of these different all this information that you have. So workforce data. What about job board information? As I mentioned, do you host a job board? Even if you don't do direct recruitment, what are, do you have on your website, do you host information about vacancies that your health centers have? Do you have a way to keep track of vacancy listings? So this could be just through your job board that you have on your website, or if you do direct recruitment in your state, do you have a list of vacancies? What do they say? Things also like surveys. Do you do a recruitment and retention survey at your PCA? Do you have any information around tenure information? Anything really with numbers and data, those are something to look at. Also, like I said, compensation and benefit surveys. This is another thing you can take a look at from your state perspective to see what's going on in regards to your compensation and benefits at your health centers. Lastly, or I guess not lastly, the world of data is infinite, but lastly on this slide is UDS workforce information. So one great thing to look at is your state roll-up report. So we develop these each year with our data profiles, and it's something that you guys can use as a resource, and don't hesitate to reach out to us if you can't find it or you need it. Obviously, our new data profiles are going to be coming out in the next couple months, and so that's going to be changing a little bit. You're going to get updated information, but this will have some great workforce data for you. So Allison went over all of the amazing ways that you can work through data, and I just wanted to remind you guys about all of these types here. These are crucial when you think about your workforce training plan. And so I thought it was worth going over again. So again, all of those things that I mentioned in the last slide, and then also, all of these things on an organizational level, as well as any HR data that you might have. So any of these and all of these, if you have them, take a look at them. And again, it might seem daunting, but you probably don't have everything I mentioned, and which is, it's definitely not a bad thing at all. So take a look at any and all data you can get your hands on. As Allison talked about last time, it wasn't last week, I said last week, but last time, you guys, there's so much out there, and it really can provide a wealth of information, and so take advantage of any and all information you can get your hands on when it comes to developing your workforce training plan. Okay, we're going to go back to the slide. And so you're also, in addition to data, you want to gather workforce input from your health centers. So this is really any requests that you receive from health centers for training or technical assistance in regards to workforce issues. So these could be things like TA requests. Are you constantly getting emails or phone calls from health center staff that saying, hey, we need to figure out this compensation thing. We're constantly hearing that we're not paying enough, or we're just not sure how to structure this. things like that. So anything that you're hearing as a reoccurring theme and that you're tracking it and you're saying, gosh, we really need to focus on this. So, take note of that. Also, surveys from peer groups. Do you have an HR peer group? Do you have a, CMO peer group or, medical director peer group? Things like that. What are you hearing from those specific peer groups? That's another great thing to utilize when you are starting to develop your training plan. Also, this is another thing. Do you have a needs assessment on workforce? This can be invaluable. A lot of folks don't do this on a formal basis, but if you do, it's a great way. It's a great thing to have as input for your training plan, because this is really going to tell you exactly what they want you to develop some training on. So take into account to all of these things as you are developing a training plan. And again, you guys are probably not going to have all this, and that's okay. But anything you have on each one of these buckets is going to help you inform what your training plan could and should be. Okay, so next up are your PCA and HCCN workforce priorities. So these would be any internal PCA goals. Remember, we talked about goals a few slides ago, or objectives for workforce development that your PCA has. So some things that some examples of this might be your strategic plan. We've talked a lot about strategic plan before and how important it is, and it can apply when you're talking about actually getting to the nitty-gritty of developing your training plan. So that can be important. Also, or your department goals. So do you have a workforce department? If you don't have a workforce department, if you will, what are some things that your HR, your anything involved around or in workforce, and the goals that you guys have for your department? Think about those two when you are developing your training plan. Also, you want to think about what prior trainings have we had on these, topics that seem to be emerging. You want to make sure that you are not repeating things, and also to paying attention to the reviews from training sessions. So if you have sessions around workforce at your annual conferences and you are getting rave reviews and people are in the comment section, they're saying, great, we want to hear more about this, please give us more. Or if they're not great, then also listen to that too. So, wasn't really relevant, all those kind of things. And while we all hope for positive reviews on our trainings, even that, any sort of feedback is helpful to inform your workforce training plan as you go along. So take some time, gather all of that information, put it together in a pot, and next we're going to stir it. And I don't mean the proverbial stirring of the pot. We are going to be, I guess a better analogy in this case would be, these are all the essential ingredients, or those were all the essential ingredients to baking your workforce cake. The most tasty and delicious cake possible is one with all of those components. So, as daunting as it might be, just take a minute, start from each of those columns and see what you might have. I promise you that even if you don't have all of those components that we went over, you are going to have plenty, and you're going to have everything you need if you have some from each of those columns to develop an informed workforce training plan. Okay, so you've got all your components now. You have data coming out your ears, and you are well informed. You've got all these different documents. You've got everything in front of you, and now what? So what you're going to do, it is not, like I said, it is not as daunting as it seems. You want to sit down and analyze all of this amazing information that you have in front of you. And so as you go along, you are going to want to ask yourself some questions. first of all, what are we as a PCA or an HCCN trying to accomplish here? What are our workforce priorities? What have we heard from different calls? What have we seen on a regional basis? If you have been talking to any of your regional partners or partners in other states, what are we trying to accomplish here at the PCA? And then with that, you are going to determine your top priorities with that. You're going to review all of this information, and some things are going to emerge that are going to be your top priority. So again, I use the example of compensation. All of these things are, you have a bunch of TTA requests from your health centers on compensation. You're seeing from your data profiles that, 5 out of 20 health centers are being flagged for their compensation efforts on their data profiles, and people are having trouble hiring folks at health centers. So all of these things might point to a priority being, okay, maybe we want to have some training around compensation. So those kind of things. So really just taking all of those things and putting them together. You're also going to want to ask yourself, what is the landscape from a health center's view? So again, this is in sort of that workforce input bucket. And you're going to be looking at any TA requests or needs assessments. So this is going to be something that is going to be, you are going to be looking at all this information, and you're going to be talking about pulling out the top priority from the health center. So the first question really is more of the PCA. I got a little ahead of myself. Be more of a PCA perspective. What are the top priorities from a PCA perspective? And then the second one is really from a health center's perspective, what is sort of trickling to the top? What is, emerging, and, it's like, blinking and flashing in neon signs, so you can't ignore it. What are those topics that, really are, keep coming up from health centers? And then you want to take a look at the data, and you want to take a look at anything involving data, the 2 slides that I showed you, data profiles, and anything that you can gather as far as workforce goes. So any vacancy listings, just taking a look at your job board, what are the true needs as far as workforce goes? So what do people want, or what do people need training on? And then lastly, you are going to really outline your training parameters. So this has a lot to do with what your work plan says. And so if you said that you're going to do, we're going to do 3 trainings, and they're going to be on, webinars, then you need to do that. So you want to make sure that, that you are taking into consideration all of these different types of things, in addition to, again, like I said, the types of trainings, your larger goals or themes. Does your, do you have, again, that PCA strategic plan? What are the larger goals or themes? And then also, as you are developing this training plan, and this is really getting down, once you've identified all the topics that are trickling up to the top as far as the priorities of the PCA, the priorities of the health centers, and then also looking at the data, you want to really take a look at, do we have expertise in-house, or do we need to hire somebody else? And a lot of times, there are expertise. You guys are experts in a lot of things. If it comes to QI or things like that, a lot of PCAs have experts in house. And if you don't, then that's when you need to go outside. So develop, figure out what you need to train on. Look at the types of training that you want to have. You could have a peer work group that this would be a great webinar. It could be something that you could have an in-person training on, or it could be something for your annual conference. So, figure out the type of what you need to train on, then figure out the type of training, and then decide whether or not you have the outside expertise to deal with it there, or to, excuse me, present on it and train your health centers on it. So again, you can do it. It is totally doable, and I think that you guys are going to do great. So one thing to keep in mind, that you guys are learning as you go. Everybody is learning as we go. You know, we are all students, no matter how old we are. So as we think about workforce training plans, this is something where the PDSA cycle really applies. So we are going to develop your workforce training plan. Then you are going to enact your workforce training plan. You're gonna do the things that you're said you're gonna do in your training plan. Then you are going to you're going to study it. How do we do? How were the responses? How were the reviews? You know, does it seem to be something that health centers continue to want training on, or are they only mildly interested in what you have to say? And then you want to act on that, and then come back and do the whole cycle over again. So make sure that as you're developing these, and they are living, breathing documents. So they are ever changing, and every year when you take a look at what you guys are going to be doing for the year, keep this in mind. It's something that take a look at what you've done prior and how it's gone, and then study that, and then take some action with what you've learned. We have some resources at the STAR Center to help you. So this is, our strategic planning workbook is out and live. It is, even though it's a little bit higher level, I think it will help you as you start to develop your training plan. So take a look at that. Some resources that are also available for this are our data profiles. I mentioned these earlier, and they can be really critical and crucial when it comes to developing a training plan, just to have something from a national and state perspective when it comes to what is going on and what the needs are in your state. We also have a PCA curriculum intake form, and that was something that we sent out last year. So last year at the STAR Center, we, for those of you guys who are interested in this initiative, we helped you guys develop training plans for your PCA. So if you're interested in that and want those, it's a great place to start. So just for questions to ask yourself. So if you'd like a copy of that, I'd be more than happy to send you that intake form, just to get you thinking about the types of things that you should be looking at when it comes to your what is going on at your PCA, and also just the type of information that you could utilize when it comes to developing a training plan. We have some things that are relevant to this. We posted these actually last month, but I wanted to make sure that we posted them again because they're definitely relevant to training. Are the HR metrics learning collaborative. That's going to talk about using HR metrics and then what you do with it. So this is another great way to understand data and putting it into a training plan. And then also our turnover analysis tool. So a lot of you, I've talked to a lot of you guys this week about we're developing a national turnover tool. And so that's going to be coming out soon, and that'll be something else that you guys will be able to utilize as you are talking about your workforce training plan. So one more poll question rather. So poll question 2, when you think about developing a workforce training plan for your state, what might be your greatest challenge when it comes to developing your state workforce plan? Is it A, gathering the information, B, analyzing information for trends, or C, determining capacity to execute that training plan? We'll keep it open for just a couple more seconds. You guys are weighing in. That's okay. All right. So it looks like 57 of you guys the greatest challenge is going to be determining the capacity to execute the training plan. So all of you are in good company. This is, a great way to, sort of figure out what maybe would be your biggest priority if you develop a training plan or see what the emerging themes are, figuring out the top priorities, because I know that, as I mentioned earlier in the call, you guys wear a lot of hats, and so our time is precious and our resources are precious. So that's absolutely consideration. 14% said analyzing the information for trends would be their greatest challenge, and then 29 of you percent of you said gathering all the information. So those of you who said gathering all the information, like I said, if you want that curriculum intake form, I'd be happy to send it your way. Either way, this is something that, big or small, you could start small and then go from there, especially those who have limited staff capacity at the PCA level to execute this training plan. Think small. And, doing, maybe 1 or 2 trainings a year might be it. And that's totally great. But, starting somewhere and then going from there and seeing how it goes. So, so you guys can do it. I know you can. Okay. So we are going to transition, and we are going to hear how a PCA executes or develops and executes their workforce training plan. So we are so excited to have some experts from the California Primary Care Association. So today we have both Nataly and Isa on the line with us, and they are going to be talking about how they've developed their workforce training plan in California and how they've executed on that. So again, thank you guys so much for being here with us today, and we're excited to hear from you. Take it away, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Suzanne. Good afternoon, everyone. As Suzanne mentioned, my name is Nataly Diaz, and I'm the Senior Program Coordinator of Workforce Development for the California Primary Care Association.
And my name is Isaias Iñiguez, but I go by Isa, and I'm the Program Coordinator for the California Primary Care Association here.
Great, thank you. And before we go into specifics, really for those of you who may not be familiar with our association, did just want to mention that we are a PCA made up of over 1,300 community health center sites across our state, which collectively see over 6.5 million patients every year. And so just given the volume of the different community health centers that we have in our state, there are varying needs and challenges and interests given each organization's location, their size, their budget, staff. And so with that, we have tried to develop a process that we have implemented on a year-to-year basis to develop training for those different needs and interests and challenges, et cetera. So as you can see on this slide here, we here at CPCA have incorporated workforce development as one out of our 4 bold steps. And so what that really means is that workforce for our association has become a top priority. Really what we aim to do in all of our workforce work is cultivate a robust community health center workforce. And the way we do that is through 7 different, what we call our workforce goals within our workforce goal steps that really helps us get to that goal. And so as you can see here, they all tie to, fostering pipeline partnerships, enhancing community-based training, so, looking at residency programs within that space, looking at financial incentives, loan repayments, et cetera, really promoting team-based care models and addressing provider burnout, really looking at how is it that we can really, address the health workforce disparities that we're seeing, in our different regions. How can we support recruitment and retention to make sure that our folks are, we have not only the appropriate staff in place, but also how do we retain them in our organizations long term? And then the last workforce goal ties into really how is it that we as a state and as an organization can really coordinate shared advocacy and joint work with other organizations, recognizing that partnerships are critical to moving a lot of this work forward. And so you can see that a lot of what we talk about in the workforce goals does translate into what we do in terms of the priorities. As Suzanne mentioned, this is one of the core components that is critical to look at when we go about deciding which trainings we will be doing in the upcoming months and year.
Yeah. And so here at CPCA, what we do and what we wanted to share with you, and as you can see on the slide, are some of the different avenues and ways that we collect feedback from our members in efforts to determine what our workforce training priorities will be. We provide these opportunities to our members with not only the goal of producing training that we believe would be helpful to our members, but most importantly to address any pain points that members might be experiencing. And so ultimately with the goal of creating a robust workforce, allowing them to create a robust workforce team. And so some examples and some of the things that we do, for example, we have training surveys. We also have the HR peer network, which meets on a quarterly basis, and we generally invite guest speakers or different members and are actively engaging with participants in the HR peer network to collect feedback and collect any sort of challenges that they're experiencing and addressing those challenges through these through these HR peer networks. Our HR peer network has the goal of providing a space for participants to collaborate together and connect. We also have our workforce committee. We offer a salary survey, and we also rely a lot on reported data. For us here in California, the University of California, San Francisco has been very resourceful in producing and reporting data on workforce challenges that are seen here in California, and ultimately we also use ACU's the data profiles that Suzanne mentioned earlier, which have also been very helpful in just seeing what the pain points are and what our state looks like.
And if I could just add on to that, Isa mentioned the CPCA salary survey as one of the avenues that we use to gather some information from our membership regarding some of their challenges or, pain points, as you mentioned. The salary survey, actually what we did with that for the first time this year was incorporate new workforce questions that would help us get at that question that we were looking at exactly. So in the past, it did collect a lot of information about, compensation figures and benefits packages, but we began to look at that project a little bit more broadly to really use that as a tool for us to also collect information from our members in terms of what they want to see, what challenges are they encountering. So you'll see some of that displayed on the next slide.
Yeah. So as mentioned, we wanted to give you some ideas or some examples of what we at CPCA, here at CPCA, have some of the trainings that we have offered to our members with the input and feedback that we've gathered through the different avenues that we shared, that were highlighted in the previous slide. And so this year, we've offered a couple of trainings on MA, medical assistant trainings, as well as any trainings on auto HPSAs with the Shortage Designation Modernization Project. as well as residency program trainings.
Yeah, and so those trainings themselves have also led us to gather a little bit more information about what our membership is specifically looking in these different spaces. So for example, the first one you see for medical assistant training, supervision, and scope, we partnered with our medical board to host that training, to lay out all of that, the different content. But what we saw come out of that is also a large number of questions about things they still were curious to know. And so we have leveraged that opportunity to collect feedback, because the way that's done is actually through a post-webinar survey that we conduct, and so that's where we saw some of the questions come up. We use that information to also begin looking at how is it that CPCA can play a bigger role in this space. And so as a result of that, we've been looking at the potential development of a MA program of sorts to further assist in the training of the MAs directly. And so that's just an example of, we do all this work pre-training to get to that point of, evaluating your data, making sure you look at your priorities, collecting member feedback to then put on the training, but that's not the stopping point per se. Really, those trainings can also be leveraged to gather further information that may be helpful for your organization to continue trainings on that one topic. And so wanted to add that quick nugget of information. And really quick, relating to the 2018 trainings as well, wanted to point out that we actually worked very closely with the ACU team last year to participate in the PCA curriculum intake form to help us get to this point, right, where we knew ahead of time what are the different pieces that we wanted to cover. And so through their support, we were also able to think through some of those details a little bit more effectively, and then lay out an efficient process for making sure we met those goals. And so wanted to add that nugget of information.
Yeah, and moving forward with the 2019, here as we have on the slide, so as Natalie mentioned earlier, this year was the first year that we incorporated workforce questions into our salary survey, which has been very resourceful and helpful for us at CPCA to establish and assess the need. And so what came out of the responses that we gathered from our salary survey for 2019, we're planning on offering trainings that revolve around clinical workforce priorities, such as enhancing productivity, any sort of recruitment challenges, as well as strategies that are used to retain existing clinical staff. Recognizing that this, as mentioned, this is the first year we have the workforce questions incorporated into the salary survey. What we do here at CPCA is we work very closely with our training team to meet with them and share with them what the need is based on the input that we received, and see how we can create a rollout plan and implementation plan for each year.
Great. Yes, and so as Suzanne mentioned too, part of this process also includes evaluating whether we need to bring in guest speakers. We have oftentimes too highlighted our own members, recognizing that they are experts in different spaces as well. We use this, different trainings to also highlight some of the work that they're doing, because it's really that peer-to-peer learning that we have found is also really successful for our membership. And so this next slide talks a little bit more about how do we deliver our trainings. And so we've done that through a number of different strategies, each which have been beneficial in their own way. A lot of our trainings are offered virtually via webinars that we've conducted throughout the year. We also do a number of in-person trainings, just depending on the content that's being presented, and if that's the format that would allow for certain content to be best delivered. We've oftentimes done that as well, between half-day meetings to 2-day meetings, depending on what we're talking about. We also have a number of, we have an annual conference and a number of different boutique events that we have throughout the year, where we also put together different sessions to share information amongst our membership. But another thing that we've been using lately is podcasts and webcasts. We have found recently that that is another great way to deliver content, because it doesn't necessarily require someone to, log in or be present on a specific date or a specific time. It really gives the viewer or listener that opportunity to listen to the content when is best suited for them. So that's something that we've been doing a lot lately. We, of course, post all of these different learning opportunities on our event calendar, which is listed on our CPCA website. And then once they have actually occurred, they move into this section of on-demand training. So this is essentially the warehouse of different training opportunities that CPCA has hosted. So for example, if we had a webinar yesterday, by the end of the week, it would be moved into this on-demand training where a health center could go in and listen to the recording for that webinar. We, given my comment earlier regarding podcasts and webcasts, have also really begun to highlight and utilize heavily our CPCA YouTube page. Great way to share different videos and resources. So that's another, resource that we've been capitalizing on to share information. And with that, just wanted to say thanks to all for your attention today. On that slide, you will see both Isa's and my contact information. So if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. I'll turn it back over to Suzanne for Q&A or whatever else she would like to talk about.
Sorry, guys, I had muted myself and I was talking and nobody could hear me. Thank you guys, both to Nataly and Isa. We really appreciate everything that you shared today and all of your insights on how you execute or how you determine what your training plan is going to be and how you execute it. I'm especially interested in the podcast portion, and so we might be calling you guys when it comes to that. So I know that's definitely the way things are going. It's really interesting how many years ago, people used to get their information and entertainment by listening to things, and then everything went to video, and now we're going back to, doing it, learning on an audio basis. So that's really kind of interesting, and love how things have come full circle. So thank you again to you guys to Nataly and Isa for being here and sharing all of their awesome insights. We are going to take some time and do some Q&A. So I know there's some questions that have come in. I'm going to try to look at them from my screen here and see if we can't go through there. Okay. So I have one question for you guys at CPCA. It says, can you clarify what CPCA means by health workforce disparities?
Sure. So when we talk about workforce disparities, it's really looking at how is it that we can, better support the dissemination of our workforce across each of our different regions. Recognizing that we have a mix of rural, frontier, urban sites, but also with that, looking at how is it that we can better support who is in our care team to make sure that we are supporting or the idea of practicing at the top of one's scope of practice. And so a lot of the work that we've talked about in that space falls into that one goal.
Great. Thank you so much. And one more question that has come in is, would you guys be willing to share your workforce survey? I guess that means your workforce survey questions.
Yeah, so if you have questions on that, feel free to contact me. Know that the survey report, so the full thing with the actual data and everything is also located on our CPCA website within our store. But if you have questions about the actual questionnaire or the process that we use for that, feel free to connect with me.
Great, thank you. Okay, so someone asked me to reference the information on the clearinghouse for all of the national cooperative agreements, and that is healthcenterinfo.org. And I'm going to put that in the chat box if I can spell it correctly and talk at the same time. Healthcenterinfo.org. I just put that in the chat box. So you can go there and check out all the things on the clearinghouse. Is there any other questions that we have before we get off the line? Okay. Again, and you have our contact information here at the STAR Center and Nataly and Isaias as well. So if you think of something afterwards, you can go ahead and contact one of us. Okay, so just as we're wrapping up here today, again, send us your questions, connect with each other on the IWS platform. Even though there is no workforce peer learning team anymore, you still have that platform. And it's a great way to ask questions and crowdsource and get some information. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we are in the middle of our week of PCA regional calls. So if you could please participate in those and also complete the polls that are going to be coming out after those. So look for that coming by the end of this week. And finally, join us next time. So we are going to be talking about developing a state recruitment plan on January 3rd. So the holidays will be over and everyone will be ready to, oh, you know what? And typo, it's not 2018, it's 2019. I just realized this. Sorry about that, guys. So we will be back here on January 3rd of 2019 at 3 p.m. Eastern talking about developing a state recruitment plan. So thank you guys so much for your time and attention. And again, to Nataly and Isaias for sharing. And I hope you guys have a great afternoon and a wonderful holiday season. Thanks, everybody. Take care.